little bit later on this morning in Toowoomba, the official unveiling of the latest mural on our cityscape. And this one is a beauty. It's a giant mural depicting the actual coach and team of horses that were used the last time Cobb & Co coaches ran a coach anywhere in the country. And it happened in our own backyard. It was the run from Surat to Yulbar. It happened on the 14th of August 1924. And this mural depicts that. The mural is up on the western wall of the building on the corner of Margaret and Clifford Streets. And this mural has been the brainchild of Toowoomba's John Osborne. John, amongst many other tourism-related things he's done in his long and rich life, was actually the public relations officer for the Cobb & Co company of the early 1970s, when Cobb & Co was reborn as a modern passenger coach line. The mural will actually feature the coach that was pulled by a team of 8 horses on that last run back on 14th of August 1924. And that makes this mural totally unique. Cobb & Co's practice at the best of times was to harness only ever 7 horses on the smaller coaches. This particular one was led by 8. But let's find out why and a little bit more about how the mural came to be. I caught up with John Osborne yesterday as the panels of the mural were being placed on the wall and had a chat to him about how this idea came about.
2022, I realised that the 100th anniversary of the last ever Cobb & Co coach to run, 14 August 1924, was fast approaching. And I checked around and it seemed there was nothing planned or nothing considered. So I thought, well, we've got to do something here because, I mean, as a city, I don't think we even know the connection that Toowoomba has with Cobb & Co, but it's stronger, longer and certainly longer lasting than any other town's connection with Cobb & Co. We can go back to the 1840s when Cobb & Co serviced this area, and then up to when Mr Bolton opened the Cobb & Co motorised transport and coach business, and then the fire, and then as a result of community agitation, after the fire, the Queensland government moved and the Cobb & Co Museum, and then we've gone on from there.
Now that it's being done, what people will see, so the photo that this mural is based on is not just your photo of your standard Cobb & Co coach led by the standard number of horses. You've actually come across a photo that is unique but also historically accurate. Tell me about that.
I was very fortunate, David, because I was concerned that if we did something and it included a Cobb & Co coach, because the coach that was used in 1924 was different to the others, and more importantly the way in which the horses were harnessed and the number of horses harnessed. For instance, 8 horses for a coach of their normal size, normally 7 horses, and the way in which they were harnessed up. All of those things were different. Now, people can challenge the accuracy and the authenticity of the mural subject, but they can't win, David, because there's this tiny little photo. A lovely long-term resident of Yulbar Surat sent me in, and it was the receipt of that photograph that triggered me. Okay, we've got to do a mural. It certainly presented Ian Stewart Costa with a few problems because you could hardly see 2 of the horses. You know, if you had a good imagination, you could position them. But Ian's done a fantastic job in the way in which he's presented the mural. It's not a photograph, David. It's an artistic representation of what happened in 1924.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's got that colonial feel about it, almost sort of stylised. I mean, it looks fantastic. But can I just confirm, so with the 8 horses, they had the extra 2, because of if there were muddy conditions, was it just because of the conditions on that week of those last runs?
Correct, David. The decision was taken before the coach left. The track and the sort of reports about the track were that they doubted very much that the service would get through. So the wisdom of the drivers and their local knowledge naturally lent then, look, we got to add an extra horse and that way we'll go through. Now if you think about it, David, it rained and rained and rained overnight on the 14th of August, and that led to the reason that there was never another Cobb & Co coach run. Right. Simple as that. The company at that stage, David, was very shaky, and that brought it about the end. But it must have been truly wet and boggy because the drivers, according to some of the historic reports, had considerable difficulty in making the journey. Would never have done that, David, unless the 8th horse was harnessed. Yeah.
You're almost waiting for someone to come up and say they didn't have 8 horses, so you can say, well, little do you know.
Exactly. I got a story for you, right. And it's all true.
Yeah. But that's great because it does make the whole thing, it gives it a unique angle that makes it different and makes it incredibly historically accurate. So it's actually a lovely touch.
Absolutely, David. It couldn't have been better if you know, looking back at it now. Yeah. But it's produced a few headaches, more for Ian as the artist than me. But it's the authenticity, David. If we would have painted or had just a Cobb & Co coach number 100 from 1924 or whenever, so what? Yeah. But we've got a pictorial representation or an artistic representation of what the coach was, what the coach looked like, and the team of 8 horses. So it can create all the discussion, but the discussion, it can never be challenged, the accuracy or the authenticity.
No. Tell me, what made you decide on Ian Costa to do this actual mural?
Let me put it this way, that wasn't an easy decision. We had internationally acclaimed mural artists express interest. We had 2 nationally acclaimed local artists that expressed an interest, so the quality was there. But I'd worked with Ian before in my days at the John Dairy and Wool Shed and always found him to be absolutely fanatical in everything he did. And when I got talking with Ian, and I didn't know up until then that Ian actually handcrafted a full-size Cobb & Co coach. Now, I would defy anyone, David, to say that's not an original Cobb & Co coach. So it was that factor, and having seen some of the other work he's done as a bespoke signwriter, I figured it was him because he had the feel for Cobb & Co. Yeah. He had a connection with Cobb & Co, and I think his connection and that feel is borne out here in the mural.
Absolutely. It's very eye-catching. I mean, congratulations on what you've achieved. It's wonderful. Why is this important? You know, because it hasn't been easy finding a business willing to hand over its wall for this, even though it's a very classy-looking piece of art, a little bit classier than the artwork that was there, I might say, John. But why was this particularly important? Why was it worth the battle that you've had?
David, if we look now at the recognition or the importance of the history of Cobb & Co, it's grown enormously. If you just take, for instance, this time last year we had the Australia Post agree to produce 2 different Cobb & Co stamps with Cobb & Co designs on. The Royal Australian Mint agreed to cast a special Cobb & Co 100th anniversary coin. The interest in the coaches and the museum itself, if you look, I can remember working for Mr. Bolton. David, if we got 2 people every 6 months to go through it when it was under the Cobb & Co Transport Office, there'd almost be a ginormous celebration, excitement. Wow. People came to see. And you think now, February this year, David, the 2 millionth person went through Cobb & Co Museum. Now, Mr. Bolton would have been absolutely overjoyed, and so would have his wife, Mrs. Bolton, who worked her backside off, if that's not being crude, for 3.5 years to get the collection of vehicles back to its rightful home here in Toowoomba.
So it's really a logical last piece to that puzzle.
Well, the way I see it, David, Toowoomba and the people involved in tourism need to grasp the connection Toowoomba and Cobb & Co and recognise what could be achieved in drawing more people here, both young school children and also your everyday mums, dads and others. It's the interest is there. It's growing exponentially, David, and I think we as a city should really take hold of that.
Absolutely.
And I want to thank the people that put their hands in their pocket, and there are only 8 of them, and made this happen. You know, without their financial support, it just wouldn't have happened. And the Saunders family from St George, I just can't thank them enough, because they were the first donors. Right. I knew Craig's father well through a common interest in Cobb and Co coaches. Yeah. And lo and behold, Ian was the first, him and his wife Sharon and the family were the first to kick in some money, and that was the signal that let's go. Yeah. They set the example.
Yeah, John Osborne, this mural, which is being unveiled later on this morning on the corner of Clifford and Margaret Streets, which you cannot miss if you're driving along Clifford Street from Russell Street to Grand Central. You can't miss this mural on your left. It really captures your eye, and it's a fantastic initiative. It's all come about through the commitment of that man, John Osborne, who was actually Public Relations Officer for the Cobb and Co company, the version of the company from the early 1970s, when it received its second incarnation as a modern passenger coach service. But worth making a point of going out of your way to have a look. It really is magnificent.